Dear Nike, I want to have a conversation about this hat. It's over 13 years old. I don't remember when I bought it exactly. I don't remember where I bought it. But what I do remember is why I wore it. On August 10th, 2005, I was a newlywed with 2 young sons. My husband Tim and I had toasted our 1-month anniversary the night before, and I was enjoying a rare evening to myself, catching up on reading and relishing the quiet, until there was a knock on my door. I had no way of knowing that that small act of turning a knob was about to shatter my life into a million pieces. I sat numb and in sheer disbelief as I was told that my husband, while in a foot pursuit and subsequent struggle with a suspect that ended up in the road, had been struck and killed by an oncoming vehicle. He took his last breath lying in the street. What I lost in that moment was indescribable. I had to watch his mother be dealt the most agonizing blow a parent can face, and I couldn't comfort her because I was in my own hell. I had to find a way to gut my own children in the gentlest way possible and tell them that this man they had come to love, who they looked up to, who cared for them as his own, would never walk through our door again. I don't know if you've ever attended a police funeral, but watching grown men who've seen the absolute worst things a civilian can imagine break down and sob over the casket of their brother is an image that never leaves you. The bagpipes haunt my dreams to this day, but it was the faces of my children, the innocence that abandoned them at such a tender age, that brought me to my knees. I had no choice but to move on. We trudged zombie-like through our days for weeks and weeks on end. I never left the house except to drive the boys to school or buy food we barely touched. I realized that I had to do something. I had to move my body or I was going to crawl out of my own skin. So I put on the only cap I had and I went for a run. It was short, it hurt, and it was ugly. But I felt, just for those few moments on that road, like a normal person. So I kept doing it. I put that hat on and I ran every day. Sometimes I had to stop and sit down because I was sobbing so hard. Sometimes I was so angry I ran until I thought my heart would stop. Sometimes I would just scream over and over again. But it still felt better than doing nothing. That black hat became a symbol to me. It is sweat-stained, its shape is gone, and the buckle in the back barely closes, but that hat represents my family's rise from the ashes. It stands for the strength and for the sacrifice we made, loving a man who had a job that we all knew could end his life. Every time he walked out that door. And it did. And I accept that. I still wear this hat. I wore it on my run this morning. And then I heard about your new ad campaign. Colin Kaepernick has the absolute right to protest anything he damn well pleases. I don't dispute that for 1 second. My father, my husband, and many, many friends have all served this country and were willing to fight for his right to kneel. But that right goes both ways. I also have a right to express my disgust at your decision to portray him as some kind of hero. What exactly has Colin Kaepernick sacrificed? His multi-million-dollar paycheck? Nope, you already gave him one of those. His reputation? No, he's been fawned over by celebrities and media alike. Funny, Tim Tebow was never called courageous when he knelt. This man, whose contempt for law enforcement fits him like a sock, has promoted an agenda that has been proven false time and time again in study after study, but facts don't seem to matter anymore. This man has thrown his support behind divisive anti-police groups and donated money directly to a fugitive from justice who escaped prison after killing a police officer. I question the judgment of anyone who would put someone in this controversial and divisive at the head of an advertising campaign, but it isn't my company to run. I don't know if I'll have the heart to ever get rid of this cap, but I will tell you this, I'll never purchase another Nike product as long as I live. You got this one wrong, Nike. Terribly, terribly wrong.
Sherry, I'm so honored to have you on the show and to be capturing your story here at the event this weekend at Cops. So why don't we dive into, let's just jump into it.
Okay.
How'd you end up partnering up with Cops? Give me a little bit about your story.
Well, I did not even know the existence of Cops in 2005. In July of 2005, I married a deputy from Pima County Sheriff's Department. His name was Tim Graham. A month later, he was killed in the line of duty.
Jeez.
Yeah, I didn't even have a marriage license when he died.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Tim.
Oh my gosh. Tim was a pretty incredible guy. As a matter of fact, ironically enough, Tim grew up in Elmhurst here in Illinois. So he was definitely a Chicago born and bred, but he got real tired of the cold, which I completely understand at this,
Sure.
being here now. Now I understand. So he decided to go south and landed in Tucson, Arizona. I don't know that I ever parceled out how that happened, but he did. I was partner in a restaurant that he frequented, so he would stop by and have dinner on his way home from the academy, and we just had a friendship initially and really got to know each other. I had been recently divorced, and so I had 2 little boys, and so that just sort of grew. And a couple years later, we were in Las Vegas with some friends, and we ran into it was so weird. We actually ran into a couple that were on their honeymoon, and they were from the UK. And so we were all sitting around, possibly drinking one night, and they said, "We just want to see somebody get married in Vegas." And so
Oh no.
it was crazy. So Tim looks at me and he goes, "Let's do it. Let's do it." So we did. We went and got married that night.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But 4 weeks later, he was dead.
You should have been. Can you talk about what happened?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He was in a foot pursuit. He was in a foot pursuit that started at a convenience store in a little bit rougher neighborhood in Tucson, and it was a suspect he'd actually had contact with earlier in the day. He'd been released from our local state hospital mental unit prior in the day and was causing some problems, and Tim came in and was able to sort of manage the situation at that time in the afternoon. Later that evening, the law enforcement had contact with him again, and he specifically requested Tim because they had made sort of a connection at that point. Tim came out, tried to manage the situation, couldn't get him under control. Finally, for his safety, Tim's safety, he tried to handcuff him. And in doing so, the guy broke away, ran away from him, ran into traffic, was trying to gain access to some cars on the road that were driving, and Tim was able to catch up with him. Then the struggle sort of ensued. They made it onto the median. They continued to struggle. A taxi cab driver pulled over, saw the struggle, exited his car, came out, tried to help Tim, and it was just chaos. And in that chaos, they sort of tumbled into the street. A truck driver, and it was a little bit of a hill, came over the hill, did not see any of the 3 men, and hit all 3 of them. And they all died on the scene.
Oh my God. You should have been celebrating a new marriage.
Yes, yes.
You had 2 young boys that I'm sure loved them to pieces.
Oh, they did. They did. He was kind of one of them.
How do you begin to handle that? How do you begin to grieve?
Well, when you're a mom, I think that's what sort of gets you up in the morning initially. You have to be strong for them, and so you sort of just muddle through every day. It was horrible. They were 7 and 10 at the time, so they were pretty little, and that was, the most traumatic thing they'd ever been through.
No doubt.
Telling them was the worst thing I've ever had to do.
No doubt.
So, but you take it a step at a time. You mostly take care of them. The department came in; they were absolutely phenomenal. But it's different. Losing a spouse in the line of duty is a very unique experience because it's very public. Of course, the whole scene itself was a huge media issue. So, that was an aspect that I didn't have any idea. I knew nothing about the law enforcement culture. I'd barely been in it. Sure. So I had no understanding whatsoever. So when we did the funeral and people were lining the streets and thousands of people showed up and the governor was there, I was stunned. It never occurred to me that it would be such a public thing. And in so many ways that was wonderful, but in some ways you have no time, no space for just your family. There are just people everywhere all the time. So then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, all of that disappears. And so here you have all this activity, all these people. and all this going on around you, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up and there's nobody there, and I'm there alone with my 2 little boys, and I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. You know, I kind of faked it for a while, and then the most amazing thing that happened to me was I met another spouse who'd lost her husband about 10 years prior to mine. And I was so stunned that somebody else knew exactly how I was feeling, exactly what I'd been through. And she was a part of the Arizona chapter of Concerns of Police Survivors. And that's what brought me in. She took me back to Police Week. She held my hand the entire time because it was a really traumatic experience, wonderful experience, and I think it's necessary for all survivors to do. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. But her willingness to go through that with me, to share her experiences with me, and that I had the ability to see that she came through this okay. She was doing wonderful. She had remarried. You know, just to see that she had progressed through this, I didn't think I was ever going to be happy again. And so through her eyes, it gave me the ability to see that that was possible and that I could survive and I could set a really good example for my kids by moving forward and, you know, and not living in that grief for the rest of my life.
Let's talk about how far your family has come and where you are now.
3 years after I lost him, I remarried another police officer. He's a pilot for Tucson Police Department. Ironically enough, he actually did the flyover for my husband's funeral. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know. So very small world. But, you know, the boys struggled some growing up, but we were really fortunate. They've done amazing. They've connected with my husband, Chris, in incredible ways. We blended a family. All 3 of the boys are in college. They're doing wonderful. And you know, I think one of the things that I told them when they would struggle when they were younger is that they, you know, when you have trauma in your life, you have a choice on how you respond to it, and that's how they need to live their lives. You have to find whatever you can that's going to pull you forward and not pull you down.
I've got to tell you, you are such a strong and inspiring woman. You know, ever since I got here, people have been talking about you. And so I was just so excited to connect. And I think it's a true testament to not only your internal strength and that of your family, but I think a lot about what this organization does for so many people.
Oh, there is no question. There is no question. And these people, what they sacrifice to help us is unbelievable. We are so, so fortunate and so grateful to know that there are people out there that care this much about the survivors left behind, because you know, you don't see that much anymore in this country.
No doubt. All right, so now a lot of people probably saw a post that you put up that basically broke the internet for a week. So we're going to edit in a picture of that right now, okay, and just walk people through what they're seeing here. And what happened?
The picture of the hat?
Yes, the hat.
So this happened the night that Nike dropped their new campaign, the one with Colin Kaepernick, and I had just actually walked in the door from a run, and I was wearing that hat, and my husband was watching Fox News, of course, and
love your husband.
And he said, "Oh my God, you've got to see this campaign," and so we watched a little bit of it, and I just. Honestly, had they just used him, I didn't love the idea, but the tagline that they used for him about sacrificing everything just absolutely infuriated me.
No doubt.
And so I was storming around and having a fit, and my husband started laughing, and he points at my head and he goes, "You're wearing a Nike hat right now." And I sort of in disgust, I took it off and I threw it on my desk and sort of went about my day. And then that evening I sat down at my computer to do some things, and it was in my peripheral vision, and I looked at it, and I opened my Facebook page, and I just sort of vomited that all out onto my Facebook page, and I posted it. And a little while later, the liaison officer that took care of my family after my husband was killed called me, and he said, "I'd really like to share this on my page. Would you mind making it public?" And I did, and didn't really think much about it. And the next morning I woke up and it had just exploded everywhere. So
yeah, it went nuts. What was the feedback like?
You know what? Honestly, for the most part, I would say 90% of it was really, really positive.
Sure.
Really, really positive. But what wasn't positive was kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
It was kind of horrifying, really, really scary. And it's amazing what people decide you are without knowing anything about you. And
No
so
doubt.
that was disheartening, but for the most part, really, really great feedback.
A lot of keyboard warriors out there among that 10% of people that
yeah.
will make you lose faith in humanity, I think,
Absolutely.
for a moment.
Well, you probably know significantly better than I do, but
Oh, yeah, no, but I also troll people in reverse for sport. So,
yeah.
but
So
no,
do I.
I think your post spoke so from the heart. And I think that's what really resonated. I hadn't put two and two together until someone was like, dude, that's the woman with the Nike. I was like, I was so excited to meet you. But I think if we look at what's happening in society these days and how divided society is, left, right, whatever it may be, there has to be that common ground. And you would think that standing behind men and women who will take a bullet for a stranger would be that common ground. And sadly, it's not.
Yeah.
What do you hope the takeaway is from all of that?
Oh my gosh. I hate to say that I don't want anybody to have to experience any trauma in their life where they have to have police or first responders come in and help them. But if that's what it takes to make you understand what their job is and what their sacrifice is on a daily basis, then I don't think people have a preconceived notion many times about law enforcement and military and first responders, and I would just like them to maybe see the humanness behind it. And that's what I was trying to convey. He wasn't just a police officer. He was a police officer who loved his family and loved his country. And he was somebody who wanted to do that his entire life. And he did it because he cares. None of them do it for the money or the glory or anything like that. And so I think people need to understand that.
Well, and we were talking about this earlier off camera too, that if you look at what these guys fight for and the way that they defend people, they don't pick a side. They don't fight for the color of someone's skin or their socioeconomic background or their race or sex or sexual preference or anything like that.
Right.
But it's the companies out there that are making it about that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the politicians out there that are making it. It's not the boots on the ground, the people who are protecting lives.
Right.
And so I think we as Americans need to come together, find that common ground, and just stand behind these men and women.
I absolutely agree. None of them go out there to be divisive or anything. They don't have the time to do that while they're working anyway. And I think it's just a ridiculous notion that they care at all anything about the person that they're trying to help, except that they're a human being.
No doubt. Well, listen, thank you for your strength, your integrity, your inspiration. It's just so touching and inspiring to be with you.
Thank you. Oh,
thanks for doing this.
Absolutely.
Guys, hit the share button right now. Do it. Just don't hesitate. Just do it. Thank you so much for watching. God bless America.